Okay, everyone, welcome to DTU Skylab. Some of you have made it right on time. It's perfect. And we will probably have a few people joining us a little bit later. We'll just let them join in. But for the people joining online, I wanted us to be on time today. Today is the last time that we're going to meet up this semester. We're going to start up again in September with the Applied AI Launch Talk. And today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Olivia Heslinga, coming all the way from Hawaii, not for this. She's living in Copenhagen now, and she's going to enlighten you about responsible AI. She's the founder of AI for Good in Copenhagen. So that's going to be super interesting. Next up, we have Wasswik from Lightbringer, a Swedish startup that is helping entrepreneurs with the patent process. So something for everyone here today. I want to put a quick advertisement in for the dates that you can see Applied AI Launch Talks in case you don't have a chance to stay with us for the full hour today. Then in the fall, these are the dates that you can join in. We're going to be announcing on the usual webpage which talks we have lined up for you. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Olivia up here on stage. Please give her a warm welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, DTU, for having me. Today, I'm going to make a business case for responsible AI deployment through AI literacy. So my name is Olivia Heslinga. I'm the founder for AI for Good Denmark. I started my AI literacy being curious about AI and what it can do for business. And now I am running workshops on AI literacy around the world. I'm helping contribute to AI policy and governance here in the EU and also abroad. And I've made a repository of all my research that inspires me to build better workshops, to talk about the hard questions that AI brings to our society at my website, aiforgooddenmark.net. And there's also initiatives around the world that are free for everyone to use to raise your AI literacy level. So what is AI literacy? I like this framework. This is actually from Stanford University because they take AI literacy from an educational lens. And most businesses, I think, use or build AI literacy, or they assume AI literacy is only functional. So how does AI work? And of course, that's important when you're building a technical solution like AI, but I would expand that definition into the rhetorical, the pedagogical, and the ethical portion of AI literacy. And today I'm going to be focusing on the fourth pillar, which is the ethical. How do we navigate AI in an ethical and responsible way? And as with most businesses, they always ask, what is my bottom line? And metaphorically, how is this going to affect my profits? But also, what is the main point of building AI literacy in your organization? If you do not have trust in the AI tool, then you're going to have issues with adoption. So you're going to be spending a lot of money gathering data, cleaning the data, putting it in your model, but then if people don't trust it, if they don't trust the efficacy, the output that is giving is actually useful, accurate, and reliable, they're simply not going to adopt it. So you're going to build a very expensive tool, and no one's going to be using it and utilizing it. But part of AI literacy, and I think the most important part, is governance. Right now, I've been studying a lot of policy around the world to try to pick and choose what I think would be a very good combination, because we have a lot of inspiration going on from academic think tanks and governments that are trying to regulate AI to ensure that it's ethical and fair moving forward into the future. But a lot of that responsibility in business falls only on the developers. And that's a bit unfair, right? Because the developers are also coming from a very limited lens of how ethical AI should look in the organization. They don't fully understand the intricacies of how people actually use the tool at the end of the day. And so with AI literacy, you're raising that level in your organization so that everyone can be part of that discussion in order to build trust, in order to raise adoption, and more importantly, you're encouraging resilience in your organization. if you build a learning culture that helps raise the AI literacy level, then you're also raising the possibility for innovation, because now people have a different tool in their toolbox. They know when to use AI and when not to, but they also know what types of AI tools are available to them in order to do their job better or build transparency. So for me, ethical literacy, I think we have to define what is ethics. And ethics is actually normative values, what you all agree upon is good or bad in your organization. And I want to limit it because I have a very short time on stage, but I think these are the two very important things that I've noticed are missing in the discussions that I've been to with industry. So I've been to a lot of industry conferences to hear how businesses are selling, how businesses are implementing, the case studies around AI. But I think what's fundamentally been missing is the environmental sustainability of how we're building AI, and also how AI is actually empowering the organization and society, for that matter, at the end of the day. And these are two very big topics, but I'm going to highlight why these are something we need to talk about. But of course, I wouldn't be a good consultant if I didn't offer a solution also. I'm going to step back a little bit. I think I'm having, there we go. So AI has a big, dirty secret. I think this is something we need to talk about, because we cannot innovate, we cannot move forward into the future by breaking things and then hoping for the best. And these are actually taken from self-reported environmental reports from all of the big techs that are building AI. And it's not very sustainable right now. This is something we actually need to talk about, because until we build a more sustainable way of scaling AI, we need to also hold back on what we're using AI for. Because if we're fundamentally moving away from our SDG goals, our sustainability goals, then I think AI has actually become a catalyst to innovate for better energy sources, right? But we also have to mitigate that until we get to that point. And I know the rhetoric seems to be US innovates and EU regulates, but actually I think EU can innovate as well, because we do have an answer to this. Through the Horizon, one of our EU Horizon grants, there's a program called Sustain ML. And the reason I bring this up, I think, is super important for DTU, because I know DTU has DTU Compute, and they're running very big computation models. I would love for them to use the tool that was developed through this program from Copenhagen University called the Carbon Tracker, that actually maps out your carbon footprint of your models. And this is important moving forward, because this gives us an idea, historical evidence on how we can improve this. And for businesses, this is super important to monitor, because this is the bottom line, right? If you can see where your inefficiencies are, you can also optimize for it. And this will also save you money in the long run. And this is a great project because it shows from a hardware level all the way up to a network level how you can build smarter, more efficient machine learning algorithms, but also architecture. And I would love for DTU Compute, their hardware research, to be part of this as well. But I would recommend academia, because I'm in an academic setting as well. This is a university. I would recommend academia to do the same. Businesses should put this in their compliance model cards, but I think academia also has a responsibility here too, to showcase what you're using for hardware, how you're building out the infrastructure, so that moving forward we can get better and smarter on how to do this. And the other ethical question that I would like to talk about is how AI can empower. This is taken from the MIT AI Risk Repository. And they just installed this incident report. All of this is actually taken from news. So these are not self-reported. These are not companies coming forward and being transparent about the risk that they may or may have not caused. This is simply by journalism. And I'm very glad that journalism is still alive and well, because this brings transparency to the hard questions that we have. And the top two things that are the highest recorded so far, I mean, this incident reporting is only 2 months old, and it's based on news. We already have 200 records of discrimination and toxicity from AI risk. And the biggest one is actually AI system safety, failures, and limitations. So AI literacy can actually answer a lot of this, because As I said before, a lot of the responsibility falls on the developers, and primarily the developers, to be compliant. But if they don't involve the whole organization, maybe new perspectives could have prevented this from happening. And it's not only costly for the company, it's also costly for society. So how do we empower with AI? I like to promote a think tank that I'm part of called Open Ethics. They came up with a brilliant framework on how you can build AI and scale AI in an ethical manner. And part of that ethics is bringing awareness to your organization and having that hard talk on what values you have as an organization that can be empowered through technology rather than disempowered. And I think business people would enjoy this because it's very familiar to them. The setup is a bit like the business canvas, but this is an ethical canvas. And I like to highlight two very important things that I think can mitigate these risks moving forward that I've seen in society. The values and interest of society and also your organization needs to be realigned because technology has a place in time, and maybe this is something we all need to sit back and talk about. But organizations need to give the space for people to catch up to technology, to learn what this technology is. They need to give the space to encourage curiosity. They need to give psychological safety to dissent and question the ways you've been doing business in order to build it in an ethical way. And the other thing I'd like to highlight is the failure modes. I've noticed in a lot of businesses, primarily third-party apps that run for businesses, whether that's a chatbot or a forecasting model, they don't have a way to track the failure modes. And this is extremely dangerous for a business because if you don't know how they're tracking, if it's going away from what you wanted to do, how are you going to mitigate it until it's too late? And this is also very costly for society because if you don't have ways to kind of have a kill switch or have a workaround, you need to build that kind of resiliency and kind of a risk assessment on how you're going to handle this model should it start going astray. And I think there's a great framework for this if you take the time to sit. I mean, not everything needs to be moving so fast. I think a lot of people's AI literacy needs to catch up to how fast this is really moving. And I've heard this rhetoric a lot in the business sphere, where they said, "Oh, this is going to be another industrial revolution. There's going to be a lot of jobs that will be replaced, et cetera, but there'll be a lot of new jobs coming forward." And I like to point out from Nobel Peace Prize winners from MIT that that's actually not the case. Not all technology actually promotes prosperity. It takes active, proactive effort from the society to build not only the literacy and awareness around this tool, but be actively involved in the discussion from the social, economic, and also the governance part, right? Because if we don't mitigate this risk and allow basically full-blown capitalism to take over, then society has no say in the AI economy or the future of AI. So I highly recommend people to read this book. I think it's a great kind of breakdown on how technology has not only helped us evolve, but also matured us into a society that we can build something that thrives, that is equal, fair, and transparent for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. We have plenty of time for some questions, so I'm curious to see what questions we might have in the room. You have one? Excellent.
Thank you so much. Cannot not take the opportunity. First of all, I really like the two things that you brought out, both very, very relevant right now. I'm thinking from the empowerment perspective on theory, and like I love the canvas. Do you have any examples of how do you actually implement that in an organization in terms of there's so much going on. There's already so many initiatives. There's a lot of people get just overwhelmed with this is another thing we need to sit and analyze with. Have you had any good ways to kind of sneak it in a way that it doesn't feel overwhelming for the management and also for the employees?
Well, this is my struggle, right? Because I come in as an AI literacy consultant, but if they don't give the time for people to learn, give them the space to reflect, and also dissect how they're working and how this tool might affect them and things they have to think about, then they cannot actually be part of that discussion. I find myself a lot being kind of a lawyer for both my clients and the employees, because I understand it from the employee side, but at the same time, they're not asking the right questions to get them there. And this is actually, I mean, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. This is a leadership problem. Leadership needs to give that psychological safety to be like, listen, I don't have time. I need time. Give me time. Take some workload off of me. I need time to get into this. I need time to understand this. And this is why I try to use this framework. AI literacy doesn't just stop at functional, because that's actually not enough. Obviously, it's not enough. We're beginning to fail miserably at this because we're not implementing it in an ethical and responsible way. We don't have enough perspectives to actually see where the mitigation needs to happen. And of course, I mean, I find myself more in the academic realm because they're monitoring this and they're understanding this and tackling it from a very scientific lens with the mythology and frameworks and stuff like this. But I think there's a disconnect with business because, you know, it's like time is money. We got to build this fast. And it's only after it becomes catastrophic, like literally people either have to die or lose livelihoods for people to start, you know, reacting to it. And that's not where I want to be. And trust me, it's already happening a lot in the US. And I'm trying to help mitigate it now in Denmark because I don't want this rhetoric to spread here, right? So I think it's that psychological safety needs to happen, but that time and space to reflect also needs to be built in. And this is why I like to highlight, if you build a learning organization, not only will that help you get there in a responsible way, but it's also going to help you innovate, right? Why wouldn't you want a smarter workforce? If you're investing in the workforce, then you're going to obviously come out with better ideas to do things. So I think, I mean, that's a business case to invest in your people, basically.
I actually think it's a very interesting thing that you so just following what you have commented, I was thinking that I think large language model marks a really different phase of AI from the AI prior to us. Not only is that the explainability gets lower, and then it is then we are also seeing that the coding becomes more like a black box of what your input data is. But also, I think it's actually very interesting paradigm that with large language model, we have the foundational model, and then for corporations or for some companies, then you can derive from this foundational model to like a fine-tuned model, and then you sort of can build AI agents, but build upon it. So my question here is, how much of the vision that you want to, like how much of the vision will be actually powered by a down to top technological innovation? Because if we do not change how we train the foundational large language model, we are not going to solve a lot of the things that make us miserable right now.
Actually, I wanted to take this opportunity at DTU to talk about a technical framework I've been working on for data ethics. Data dignity. And data dignity is basically how do you build an ecosystem infrastructurally from a technical perspective that actually gives power back to the user. Because I think when you start building it from that mindset, then you're able to allow multiple players to come in. It becomes a modular system rather than a monopolistic, monolithic system. And now you have a lot more control on how and what is getting inputted into your AI. And I'm actually really glad you brought this up. I didn't have time to mention it in this kind of short presentation, but there is a huge crisis in information right now. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation online. They have done multiple studies in different forums and social media basically the tech companies know that it's too late to save. So they basically have stepped back and announced, we're not doing fact checking anymore. And this is extremely dangerous because this is getting pulled into other AI models that is then getting pulled into your business, into your society. And if we have no way to fact check and also to be critical of what is actually in these AI model databases, then I think we've already kind of completely lost track of what we're building. And if you don't track your evolution of AI by monitoring it and having control of your data, then as a business, I would be very weary of what you're actually plugging in. And this is why AI literacy is so important, because the governance part will teach your employees not to use a third-party AI and put sensitive information or worse, vulnerability into your organization, because it's very hard to track that. So I think that's a larger discussion, and it gets very technical, and I'm glad you brought it up. And this is actually my next speech, my next research is going to be about data dignity. How do we build an infrastructure that will do that? And part of that will be a chain of verification, not only from the government, but different parties that can actually verify who you are, because now it's getting easier to make AI versions of you through sensitive data that's been hacked, basically, because they usually hack it, and then a year or two later, they actually utilize it, but you can't keep track of that. And if we can't keep track of that as a society, then we have a digital metaverse that is basically acting on behalf of us, but without us knowing.
So I'm curious to ask a little more questions about this new application of yours, because I love this canvas, how it brings a spotlight to what some of the things we need to address are. But does the new application, does that talk about how to, for instance, monitor the failures and detect them and keep track of them, like keeping that feedback loop in an organization that's so important in order to detect what's going on?
Yeah, I think so, because if you build it, I mean, you can look at it from many different lenses, right? And for me, as a user of AI, I want to know where my data is going and how it might be used against me. And that kind of started my deep dive into how you build infrastructure in this way, because actually the more players you're allowed to use as a user, you get to pick what companies you want to support and why, then the power is back onto us, right? Then we have a little more say in how we want to move society forward. But if it's capitalistic and monolithic, then it's very hard for us to have that power. So in this technological shift in paradigm, I think we have a chance now. We're at a crossroads of ethics. We have a chance to, dissect, okay, how have we been building this thus far? And then more importantly, how can we do it better? And I think actually cybersecurity is going to be leading this, because the way we're building it is extremely vulnerable. And that's going to cost not only businesses money, but governments and people money. So I think that's going to be where I'm going to launch off this discussion, right? If you don't have control over your data, first and foremost, then I think then we have a vulnerability issue that will fundamentally change society.
Thank you for that great talk. My question has two parts. One is, in my opinion, at least what I feel, many companies now, due to EU Literacy Act, started to treat the need of AI literacy training as like a check exercise. And I've kind of heard that some of the big companies, we've just solved it by making online course for 20 minutes. You just click and you are done. Do you feel the same? That's part number one. And part number two, how to actually demonstrate the value of AI literacy to business, just to help them to shift from this, checklist exercise to actually getting the value?
Well, I mean, this is a bit of a scary question, because I would tackle it from a human perspective first. I actually had another slide in here that I took out because I was afraid of time. And I'm glad you brought this up, because this just came out. It's by Elon University in North Carolina, unrelated to Elon Musk. But basically, these are industry leaders in big tech companies also, but also researchers, thought leaders, and think tanks that have contributed to this report. It's over 300 experts. And what I fear is actually the deterioration of human traits that I want to see in the future because of AI. So I know this is kind of a long way to answer that question, but if businesses only treat AI literacy at a technical and functional level, I think they're not realizing the damage they can have to to the users and the organization itself, because exposure effect is very serious. So if you're exposing a bias that you don't want to see in your company to your users, they will adapt that bias. This has been proven by science from a neurological and psychological perspective. But now we have, futurist social scientists studying this, and they're realizing that this is where the precipice is. We need to decide as a humanity how we use this powerful technology to enhance and empower the human traits we want to see, not the opposite. And I think if from a technical perspective, it sounds really nice that you can optimize and make it very productive by basically eliminating, the friction that it takes for people to get aligned. And the cost of that is actually us, the people, the society, because we're going to lose out on the capacity and willingness to think about complex concepts like AI. We're going to lose out on the social and emotional intelligence that we need in order to build human connection and empathy so that we can then build, again, a responsible AI. And this is actually, I think, a very powerful visualization of where we're headed if we do not expand the definition of what AI literacy should be.
We have two questions over here. And so far we don't have any online, so I think we have time.
Hi, thank you. I have a question more about the companies and where this will apply. So what are your opinions on what organizations would have to start working on this and adopting, and who shouldn't? And also, what would they need to be prepared for in order to actually start? What's coming for them? What resources would they actually need to actually do something that you just proposed?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a very heavy question. I honestly think it depends on your business. I mean, I'm trying to keep it kind of narrow, but it depends on your business. It depends on your digital maturity. Not every company is actually AI ready. I mean, that's it, point blank, right? But I think educating your company anyway on AI literacy, whether you're using it or not, is super important, because you don't want to build that dependency in your organization. If you find out that your employees, for example, are putting this in sensitive data or possibly making your digital infrastructure vulnerable by incorporating a second AI into that without going through the protocol or having an AI policy to ensure that safety for yourself and your organization. And there are resources. One of them is I'm going to shameless plug, AIforGoodDenmark.net. I've gathered a lot of initiatives, also free resources from technical to academical to reports and governance, where people can go in and find these things. And I don't want to, initially I had a chatbot, but I actually want people to be curious enough to find what they actually need. And also I was trying to build a data dignity safe chatbot, and I realized there's a bigger question around that. So then I stopped it for a while so I can build it in a safe way. And you're right, because ultimately it comes down to us as individuals. There's a danger in that reliance, because you can outsource your critical thinking. But where does that critical thinking happen? Because learning can be a friction, right? If you're in a liminal space and you're transitioning to new knowledge to incorporate, how do you know what is new knowledge and uncomfortableness versus productivity and efficiency, right? And I think you as an individual need to kind of reflect on that and figure out, how am I going to use AI to actually help me learn, but not kind of accidentally disable me from critical thinking and taking that harder step to absorb knowledge. I don't know how else to answer it, because I think it's at a very individual level. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. It's a great presentation. But I'm more concerned with the regulations, because businesses and companies always build fast, and innovation always goes with the speed and the drive to be first on the market. And I think artificial intelligence has brought in a lot of progress, and I think most of us in the hall have enjoyed the benefits of artificial intelligence. My question is, the rules and the regulations you're pushing for, are we not going to get to a position where maybe the governments and some other bodies place limiting laws to those of us who want to keep developing and pushing forward for new innovations and technologies in AI?
I'm very glad you mentioned this, because I believe, and I'm not being biased, but I truly believe if you have AI literacy, users can take back a little bit of that responsibility and that power. And I think with AI literacy, it kind of evens the playing field because we're at a higher level of understanding to have a higher level discussion to tackle that problem. It's complex, right? Because it's entangled. And if users are aware of the risk that they're putting into using a tool versus another tool, now they're starting to mitigate that risk and choose where we want to put our attention and money to, and what company we want to support, and what ethos we want to live by. But that takes knowledge, right? That takes awareness to choose, how we're going to build this future by supporting the right companies and the right people that see that future with you.
Thank you so much for a great talk and great questions to answer. If people have any questions online, they're welcome to type them in the chat, and I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're just getting set up here. So there's a slide advancer and everything needed for the next talk. And it looks like we're ready to go. Welcome on stage, Ola.
Thank you very much. Let's see if this works. Yes, it did. So, I'm gonna start a little bit cheesy. I usually say that this takes about 23 minutes, and if I had known what I know today and had the tools that I have today, 20 years ago when I started hardware development, I would have saved myself roughly 5 million euros. That's the level of saving that you can do with AI and with the knowledge that comes with AI. So my background is as a physicist. I studied physics in Lund University, across the water here. I've done hardware startups since 2005, roughly. And I've spent most of my career being a CTO in hardware development companies. Founded a company called Flatfrog. In there, we had to really protect our technology. So I started having to do something that was super boring, patenting the technology. And over the years, we did about 350 patents or so for the different technology solutions we have. So this company, we spent 15 years and we had a very budget-limited IP portfolio. This is something that really, and this is why we call this patent for entrepreneurs, when we were actually trying to use AI to make a problem that is super boring for entrepreneurs into something that is actually good and beneficial for the entrepreneurs. Right now, patents is a necessary evil for most startups, but they could be something so much more. And the things I've learned over the last 20 years, combined with the knowledge of the patent attorneys that we have on our team, we've been able to build something that really changes the landscape. There's an AI patent revolution happening right now. Most people don't know it, but every single patent attorney across the globe are using AI tools. Unfortunately, most of it doesn't come to the benefit of the entrepreneur. It's being kept inside the companies. This is same for all legal tech across the world. There are 2 or 3 legal tech companies working towards regular lawyers and attorneys as well. And again, it's mostly beneficial for the inside of the companies. However, there are coming AI native law firms now that basically bring the whole value to the end customer, to the end user, instead of to the professionals in the business. So to understand this and to kind of understand what we're doing, I need to tell you a little bit about patents first. And most people don't know so much about patents, and mainly because it's, again, very boring and tedious for someone who works in tech. It's just something you have to do. This is my typical experience with my years of patenting. It's very, very tedious, and it's amazingly expensive. So I, on average, spent €1 million a year on patents. But over time, I kind of realized, okay, I can at least game the system. So as soon as I finished, kind of realized that we were actually playing a game, it became much easier. And luckily, I spent most of my youth in a basement playing very, very rules-heavy games. So I kind of was a good setup for where to start. And whenever you're kind of playing a game, you need to have your separate parts. So the thing that you need when you have a hardware startup is first you need to have a team. I've seen a lot of teams out here. Some of them will succeed, most of them will not. When you're raising VC capital, typically the VC that looks at your whole pitch deck spend 95% of the time looking at the team deck, team slide. That's basically what's most important. Then you need to combine it with a great total addressable market. So you need to actually have something where you can sell into. Something might not exist yet, but you actually need to have a market to sell. It doesn't matter how good your tech and your team is if you can't actually sell it into the market. When you have all of these things and you have a good tech, then you need to protect it. So, and whenever you play a game, you kind of say, okay, what's the actual price? Why would I want to patent something? And there's data. This is from Harvard Business School and from PitchBook. You have an amazing increase in sales once you patent. You have a very big boost in the amount of money you will raise from VCs. And both of these are kind of obvious when you think about it. Patents is an insurance. It gives people insurance on the technology. This might be the VC player that puts in money. They get insurance that no one else will steal, come and basically copy your company, and they lose all their money. The customer thinks it's nice to buy a patented solution because then they're sure that they will not have chosen the wrong technology to buy. Very important specifically for hardware companies that do not make end products. Basically, they are selling to someone who then implements their technology. You get boost in fundraising, in valuation, and on the exit side, where most entrepreneurs look at, you have a 5 times higher chance of doing an IPO and 154.9% higher M&A exit on average. So now you basically know why you would be patenting. There are a bunch of very detailed rules on patenting. I usually take this one and another slide and spend about 20 minutes on this so that people kind of get the basics. I don't have 20 minutes extra here today. But the most important thing to take out of this one is that the technology is owned by the person or company that first files a patent for it. It's not the person who first invented it. And that's a very important distinction for a lot of tech companies. It doesn't matter if you invented it first if you didn't patent it first. That also means that your priority date, basically when you send in your patent application, is super important because it's from that date that you are actually protected. Even before the patent gets granted and you have your patent pending, that's when you basically have your protection. You are never alone when you're developing tech. I've myself experienced this 3 separate times, that there were teams on the other side of the planet, literally sometimes, that developed the exact same tech that we were doing, and we had no idea they were doing it, and they were not aware of us. So when kind of humanity comes to a certain technological level, smart people with access to information will invent things, and they will do it separately. That's why we have Nobel Prizes popping up from different places, research teams doing similar things. And again, first to file wins. So that means that if you don't patent and if you don't get in, someone else may basically take all that you developed. Luckily, patents are actually solutions to problems. So once you build your tech startup, you go in and you solve some difficult problem and it's related to the real world, then it's patentable. And that's where you typically find your best patents. It's when you go through the development phase. It's not when you're lying at home or standing in the shower and get an amazing idea. That is typically not the patent. The patent is when you go and do the real hard work and solve real problems. And when you're solving real problems, it's very easy to copy you. So take a personal experience again. We had a product. It took us 3 years to develop it, hardware-wise. It took us about 6 months to sell it to a customer. It took another 12 months to get the product on the market. So now we've spent more than 4 years and a lot of money on this product. It took our competitors from China 4 months to copy us. From the time we launched the product until they had a product on the market, 4 months. Without the patents that we had for that technology, we would be seriously dead. Luckily, we now have patent protection worldwide with the company, and everyone licenses the technology. The patent system is extremely complicated and intricate, and one of the things that I realized far too late was basically you need to be able to explain your invention to a farmer in Texas, because that's typically where you sue companies. The jury will be half Texan farmers. So I don't have to explain my super good technology to a PhD at the university. I have to explain it to someone with a very, very low technical skill. At the same time, you need to describe it in the patent at the right level. Very, very quickly on strategy. You do patenting for a number of reasons. You might want to license it. You might want to build a defensive portfolio. Most startups just want it for the money. They want the investment. They want that checkbox. If you want EU money, you have to have a patent. And most people don't make a patent budget up front. Why? Because it's impossible today. You can almost not build a budget for patents, because it's all hourly based, and you don't know how long it will take to do a certain thing. Oops. Another thing that most entrepreneurs, startup people don't know is that there are actually different types of patents. There are, of course, different technical fields and different variants of patents, but there's also different levels of patents. You can have like on the component level or on the system level or on the concept level, and no one is there to explain it to them. There is a walled garden where the attorney is on the inside, and you as the entrepreneur has to pay money to get access to information. Very slowly. And one other thing, and this is one of the reasons why we're sharing as much information as possible, is that there is very often a lack of business strategy alignment with patent strategy alignment, which means that very, very often the inventor thinks, "Ooh, I'm going to patent the most important thing I have invented," which is typically the very wrong thing to do. You should not be patenting your most important thing. That should be kept a secret, and you should patent all the stuff that's actually visible to everyone else. But if someone says, "I want to patent an algorithm," then the attorney typically says, "Of course, I will help you," which is not useful at all for tech startups. So you need to get that strategy part in there. So one of the things that we decided to build a founder-friendly AI-native patent platform. So basically, where you can do your patent strategy, you can do a lot of stuff to a basic level without having to talk to a human. Then, of course, you need to talk to a human as soon as you need detailed advice, but you can get to a quite good level before even having to do that. And you can use the AI to securely discover new inventions. Because one of the things with AI today is that you cannot ask ChatGPT about your secrets, because then they're not secrets anymore. So you need to basically build a system where you can guarantee that nothing is used for training or data. So, for example, in our system, everything has a maximum retention of 30 days. So you do something in the system, of course, you get the results out, but the models used and the data used is then cleaned out so that no one can use it for anything else. And it's also, of course, enterprise grade so that it doesn't leak anywhere. And one of the things that the existing human process does really, really well is to extract ideas from the head of the inventor. It's the thing that works the best in the human process today. And we've copied it with an AI. So we just put that process. We have a number of patent attorneys on the team, and we basically ask them, so how do you do this? How do we get your brain into an AI format that does the same thing, but it does it 24/7? And why is that important? Because almost none of our customers use our platform during office hours. Almost none. We have very high activity about 3:30 in the morning when people wake up and have a super idea and go and sit down. And then we have it Sunday afternoons. Typically seems to be a good time as well. You know, like, okay, the weekend is over. I have some free time before I need to go to work the next day. And we take that whole process and we see that especially the digital natives, so basically people who are younger than 35, 40, they expect to be able to do it whenever they want to. They don't want to book a meeting on a Tuesday morning. And then you can use the magic that then happens, that when you combine the basically omniscience of AI with this process, is that you can then make insights on it. So one of the things we've done, we've taken a certain number of things and said, okay, how did these actually work in normal life, and how is it now working post-AI? So a patent strategy, as an example, typically costs around 10,000 euros to do it properly. It typically takes 1 to 2 months and 2 to 4 meetings with the attorney. We can do something that comes 90% of the way in 20 minutes. Then, of course, if you want the 90 to 100, yes, then you need to sit down for a longer time and go into details. Startups typically don't need 100%. They are fine with 90% because that's where they should start out. It's better than not having it. Filing, this is where we've had most success. That's why we have hundreds of customers using us. The manual process takes 3 to 6 months and 2 to 4 meetings. An AI automated process takes 1 to 2 weeks and 1 meeting. So there's still a human in the loop doing full quality check. Then they typically have more time to spend on quality check than they did previously, because the AI handles reference numbers, uniformity of language, and making sure that everything is in there. Then comes the real interesting stuff. Then you can get access to things that actually were not accessible to small companies before. Today, doing a patent analysis, basically taking a competitor patent or something and combining it with your unfiled invention and saying, does this actually cover anything? Typically takes around a month and costs 5,000 euros. And with an AI automated process, it takes 30 seconds and is included in the platform. And you can, by doing that, you can start doing things like, well, of course, now I want to compare 100 different documents because it doesn't cost me anymore. I'm just paying for platform access. And what that leads into is there's something called white space analysis that is essentially today limited to very large companies. So in Sweden, we have a company called Ericsson that some of you may know. They spend 50,000 euros continuously and processes that are typically between 3 and 4 months long to generate white space analysis of the Huawei or Qualcomm patents, etc. And again, if you do this in an AI automated process, you're down to roughly an hour. You still need some engineers there looking at things and looking at different alternatives. And again, it's part of the platform access. And what happens is what we've seen. We have a number of startups that now are continuously using this to make sure that they don't miss anything. And also to look at their competitors and see, okay, what are they actually doing? Because reading patents is, if you ask me, probably the most boring thing you can do. And you don't have to do it anymore because the AI is excellent at reading it and inferring the details to it. So, feel free to get started. You can get 14 days free access to the platform. And we're actually discussing for incubators and startups, we give 6 months free access to the startup companies, which is something that we are doing with DTU. And yes, this was this slide. So again, my name is Wasswik, and feel free to add me on LinkedIn if you have any more questions about patents, entrepreneurship, or Lightbringer.
Thank you so much for a great talk. I'm going to open the ball. You briefly mentioned that algorithms are not the right thing to patent. If you have a digital startup, what would your recommendation be then?
So what you should look at is you should patent the thing that you can analyze on the end product. So if you have an algorithm that you can clearly analyze on the end product that they're using that specific algorithm, yes, then you should patent it. The problem with algorithms is that you can typically change them just a little bit, and they become different enough so you can just go and do the other thing. Again, from personal experience, we patented a very good algorithm, and it made all our competitor products much better. That's the only thing it did. So yeah, don't do that.
You learned the hard way.
Yes.
Yes. You have a question?
Thank you so much for very interesting presentation. I had zero knowledge about patents before. Now I kind of feel I know the basics. I've noticed that in your patent strategy, there is still a human in the loop. Is it something you're working to automate in the future, or you would like to keep it, for example, to ensure that startups are comfortable that somebody is not only AI, that is still a human touch, because it's important,
so
for the psychological.
We have a self-serve strategy, which again can take you to 90% of what you need. If you need mission critical stuff, you still need the human in the loop. For the actual patent filing, we always have the human in the loop because it's mission critical. And there's EU regulations that say that an AI cannot represent you. So, and that's probably coming to the US as well. So the answer is that you can do self-service to get a long way, but currently you still need the human to do the last stuff. Is that going to change in 2 years? Most likely.
And Olivia has a question.
I might have missed it, but is the patent database you're using, is it just EU or is it other markets?
So there is something called the Paris Accord, which basically aligns all patenting worldwide to the same format. So we're using every patent available ever published. And a good thing about patents is that they are public domain. So as soon as they are out there, anyone is free to use them in any way that they want. So it's a completely free data set that you can use. And it's global, including a lot of Chinese patents in Chinese that have not been translated, but the AI doesn't care because it understands Chinese.
What other questions do we have in the room? Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's very informative. I'm actually curious then, what patents have you filed other than the algorithm for your company?
So for my own companies, we focused a lot on the hardware parts. So we did, Flatfrog does interactive displays. So if you've ever seen a large interactive display that you can touch and write on, it's a 90% chance it had our technology inside. What we did was we focused on anything that anyone within half an hour could detect on a product. So basically, and we implemented a thing where when the inventor sent in there, okay, I want to patent this idea, they also had to provide a test to prove that that technology would be in the product. So if you can, as an example, if you can see on the product or measure on the product or measure the performance on the product or speed or cost, then that is something that is very patentable. And the most common thing you patent is something that is cheaper than the previous thing. And if you can prove that it's cheaper, less material, faster to manufacture, less energy, etc., then you patent it.
Thanks so much.
Anyone else have a question? If not, we'll give you a big hand of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to both speakers. The QR codes behind me here are actually links to their LinkedIn pages. So if you want to connect with them and follow up, you can do that. You can also contact me if you have suggestions for future Applied AI Lunch Talk speakers, people you dream of hearing, or if you want to be one yourself, you can reach out via email, or we have a form online here. And then there's nothing left for this semester other than say I hope to see you back here, either at DTU or online for the fall. We're going to start up in September and go all the way to December. and we'll bring some good speakers for you for then. Thank you so much.